Let's talk now, though, to Matt Vickers MP, Shadow Home Office Minister down in Westminster for us. Matt, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
This has not been a great week for politics, has it? I'm hearing from many listeners and viewers this week that they've lost all faith in politicians. You know, the idea that Grant Shapps thought it was a great idea, along with the members of the last government, to basically try and deny the truth to ordinary people in this country and to newspapers and news organisations, trying to basically hide something because it was a massive embarrassment.
Well, I mean, it was a disaster, utter disaster. I mean, I only know what you know. You know, I only know what I've read. But actually, when you see the fact that we leaked, well, there was a list leaked by officials onto the internet of people who'd helped the British forces, making them a target for terrorists. Utter disaster. Disaster for those people, but disaster for the British taxpayer who's having to pick up the tab.
Yeah.
Complete mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the reality is there is a case. There is a case around, you know, you have to obviously put the two things in context. You've got these people who are facing a threat because of something that the government has done. At the same time, they're very different to the individuals who are coming here illegally. Do we owe them? We do owe them if they've put their lives on the line to help our forces abroad. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that a lot of people are also being very critical of this morning is Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Keir Starmer gets up, makes a brief statement about the whole mess that you've just described, and then sort of draws a line under it. Kemi Badenoch gets up. I was expecting her to get stuck into this whole story, despite the fact that, you know, the Tories have got a lot to answer for here, because, you know, the nation deserves to hear about it. And then instead of that, she goes off on the economy. And everyone's going, well, why are we not talking about the main story of the week and possibly the main story of the decade, which is this incredible blunder?
Yeah, well, I think there's probably quite a few things to go out of PMQ. Not that I don't know why they call it PMQs. It is just questions, isn't it? We never get an answer from the Prime Minister or anything. But I think in reality, there is a lot of things to go out. Should it have been an option? Potentially. But actually, the big news on the economy today, unemployment up 14%. 14% more people out of work in this country. That has huge consequences. And what's going to happen next when he's coming to tax our pensions in order to pay for all these people who are unemployed, out of work, and unable to earn a living as the welfare bill goes through the roof?
Yeah, no, that's all very important stuff, but everybody knows about that, but they still need answers on this front. You know, we don't want to sit around waiting for some, you know, inquiry that Keir Starmer's going to tell us about in about a year's time. You know, we need to hear from Grant Shapps. We need to hear from the players who were in the middle of it. We need to hear from Rishi Sunak, you know, and if Kemi Badenoch's got any sense, she'll be on the phone to them saying, you guys have got to open up your doors and you've got to talk to people about what happened.
There is definitely questions to be asked. I mean, it is a disaster. It has huge costs, you know, the rights and wrongs of it. I mean, the reality is also around the super injunction, there's the debate as to whether actually, if you'd put it in the press, would you have put these people at more risk? I think MPs should have known. I think they should have been able to ask the questions, scrutinise the processes as soon as it came about, so that we knew what was going on, that we knew that this couldn't have been happening again for the last couple of years before we found out about it. Yeah, it's an utter disaster.
Yeah, it really is. But, I mean, you know, I'll let you off for now, and I'll let you talk about this unemployment problem. Increased from 4.7 to from 4.6 to 4.7. Average regular earnings growth decreased now. 178,000 fewer payroll jobs, I believe, for the 5th month in a row. It's a disaster. Even Jaguar Land Rover this morning announcing they're going to get rid of 500 managerial jobs. Now, this is the company that Keir Starmer said he'd saved.
14% more people not earning a wage. 14% of people who can't aspire and live the life they want. And you know what? Not working is really bad for you. It's bad for your mental health. It's bad for your outlook on the world. It's devastating, actually. 14% more people without work. And the reason for that, I mean, every Labour government in history has left us with higher levels of unemployment than when they arrived in office. Yeah, every time Labour get in power, unemployment goes up. And the reality is, it's clear to see why. It doesn't just happen by accident. It happens because of the national insurance increase, taxing everybody who dares to create jobs for somebody, because the changes to small business rates relief for leisure, hospitality and retail, because that employment's rights bill that's coming down the line, the banter ban, all these ridiculous things that mean those people who go out, set up small businesses, who work hard and graft to create jobs, they're all getting absolutely battered. And the end result is they can't create any more jobs.
Yeah.
They've got to look at the bottom line and try and make this thing thing work. I mean, 69,000 jobs in the hospitality sector have been lost since they announced the jobs tax. That is devastating. That is community pubs across the country closing their doors. Unreal the impact that it's having on individuals who are losing their jobs.
It really is. Absolutely shocking. Terrible. Matt, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Matt Vickers MP, Shadow Home Office Minister there. He says, you know, Kemi Baden not needed to talk about the economy. I still think she should have been talking about Afghanistan. Let's talk to Peter Hitchens, columnist at the Mail on Sunday. Peter, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I don't know if you agree with me, but I think this business of a super injunction against the press and against the people of this country, taken out by Grant Shapps when he was Defence Secretary, is quite the most shameful thing I think I've seen a politician do for quite some time.
It is astounding, and it's astounding in so many different ways, leading off in so many different directions, but it shows so very strongly the habit of government in this country to use all its power and a lot of our money to conceal from us what it is doing. The idea that it was trying to conceal it from the Taliban, well, okay, you can believe that if you want. I haven't. It seems bizarre to me to imagine that the Taliban weren't aware of all the people who've been working for us. It's not as if they could have done so in secret in Afghanistan. But leaving that aside, like so many government secrets performances, this is about keeping the truth about the way the government behaves from the electorate rather than keeping it from foreign powers. And we should be shocked by it and worried by it, but also we should take a lesson from it that, as quite rightly noted, the two major parties colluded in Parliament yesterday to try and play it down. I
thought that was even more disgraceful in a way.
Well, it is, but it just shows you they were both involved. The Grant Shapps may have initiated the whole business, but you don't see the incoming Labour government saying this is absolutely shocking, we can't carry on with this, and going public on it. It was only because the Daily Mail, my newspaper, carried on fighting in the courts. This thing ever came into the open. What else, I have to point out to you and your listeners, what else is going on now of the same kind of which we also know nothing?
Right.
This is a warning to you of just how many shameful things the government is doing, which carry on in secret, unreported, because the law prevents them from being reported. And remember, as you fill in your self-assessment returns this summer or autumn, doubtless with extra enthusiasm, remember who's paying for all this.
I know. Well, that's the extraordinary thing. I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg was on yesterday saying that it's quite staggering that the government of the day could have invented this super injunction to stop us from knowing not just about what the actual action was, but the cost was, without running any of it through Parliament. You know, billions and billions of pounds being committed, which we haven't known about all through the summer, being told by Keir Starmer there's a £22 billion black hole, without anybody ever mentioning the £8 billion that we're having to pay for this nonsense.
Well, be warned by it is all I can say. One could call for all kinds of inquiries and tribunals and everything else, and the country is so full of tribunals now they're falling off the edge of the island. But I don't necessarily think that's going to produce the answer. Just be warned by it. Remember how it is that we're governed, and remember that it's necessary to have an element of mistrust towards government in society, and therefore necessary to have strong independent media to call it into question. And people should be, I know that people are inclined to despise people from the media and from newspapers particularly, and to treat them as if they were somehow beneath their dignity to even take seriously. But what we do in the media is absolutely vital to maintaining the level of freedom that we have. And you should be very wary of anything which weakens those media, and you should be wary of being drawn into attacks on the media, which I'm afraid politicians and others are increasingly inclined to make. We are very, very important, however much you may dislike us. We're very, very important in actually keeping the gap open, which allows us to have some freedom and some transparency in our government.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, we're not required to be particularly popular as journalists, but we've got.
No, but I think there's a great fashion at the moment to be contemptuous. Of journalists, and I find it very tiresome. People have no idea what it would be like if there were no independent media, and this is an absolute demonstration of how it's vital. Who else would have had the resources or the money to pursue this case to the point where they actually forced the government to cough up the truth? And the answer is nobody. So do not forget that the next time you say, oh, the Daily Mail, and all of us, you hear people all the time saying how awful we all are. You may not like us, But if we were not there, you would absolutely miss us. And I think that just remember that when you look at this case. The other thing about this case is a fascinating exchange between the father of the house, Sir Edward Lee, in Parliament on Tuesday with the Defence Secretary John Healey, in which Edward Lee came close, as few MPs ever do, to the truth. The reason why we get into these troubles in the first place is this crazy policy of liberal imperialism, of tramping around the world. Well, I say tramping, actually riding around the world in Uncle Sam's pocket, trying to create democratic societies in places where they're not going to exist, and intervening in other people's affairs, as if we were Star Trek, as if we were Captain Kirk, going boldly forth to reform the world in the name of liberalism. Well, this is where it all starts, and the maddest of these enterprises was the one in Afghanistan, where nobody quite knew what we were doing there. You'll remember John Reed, who was then the secretary, and I call Comrade Dr. Lord Reed, as he has so many titles, but including his Communist Party membership of the past. But he actually went into Parliament and said that the British troops would go to Afghanistan, but no shots would be fired, which of course they were. But what were they doing there? Nobody ever knew. The one purpose they seem to have settled on was to try and introduce the ideas of Hillary Clinton and Lady Cherie Blair into Afghanistan and try and turn it into Islington with the morals and customs of that. It didn't work any more than it would work if the Taliban turned up in Essex and started enforcing a burqa law on the women of that county. People don't like being told by foreign interveners, especially armed ones, how they should live their lives. And the Afghans are no exception. In fact, they're a very strong culture which objects very much to foreign interference. And always has. You may not like what they do, but it is their country, and the only way you're going to do the sort of thing we set out to do there is to actually be an imperialist country again. Now, liberals are always telling us they're against the empire and what a terrible thing it was, and yet all the things they do in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya are basically imperialist. They're going around to other parts of the world telling people how they should behave and ordering them about by the use of military force. Well, how can that be right? And every time it goes wrong, and every
which
time
it always does. Yeah,
it goes wrong, and one of the first things that happens, and the consequence of it, and this is part of this Afghan scandal as well, is that the people of the region who've been bombed and shot at and had their societies destroyed start thinking, well, might it be a good idea to go and live somewhere else if this is what's going to happen to us here? And they begin moving. And we have begun, by these episodes of supposed utopianism, we have begun the biggest movement of population, I think, in human history, from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Iraq, from Libya, and not just from Libya, because when we got rid of Colonel Gaddafi in Libya, we opened the Mediterranean into a highway from the whole of Africa into Europe. We have transformed the world, and particularly Europe, by these adventures, and we continue to do so. And nobody takes responsibility for it or learns anything from it either. And then you get this extraordinary paradox that this helps in the creation of an increasingly multicultural Britain, in which we're taught to be ashamed of and embarrassed of our own values. And you have this extraordinary episode of the schoolgirl.
Yes, I want to come on to that. She's written about that today.
Who goes along to celebrate her culture by wearing a Union Jack dress. I know the school has now apologised and said it's terribly sorry that they shouldn't have done it, but they wouldn't let her do what she'd gone there to do. Right. It's a schoolgirl, right. and she was treated. Now, the point made in this in my article in the Daily Mail today is, how is it that we send our troops abroad beneath the Union Jack to fight and die for this country? They do die, or they're horribly wounded beneath that flag, when that flag itself is disrespected in our own schools. How can that possibly be even acceptable or coherent? What sort of country is it that is ashamed of its flag at home and still uses it abroad? Yeah. I don't get it. Or rather, I do get it, and I understand that in fact it's part of a vast and profound cultural revolution still going on.
Yeah. And what was worse,
into somewhere else.
And what was worse, and I saw an interview with the girl in question, and she said basically that they told her at school that it was Cultural Day, and the British nationality or being British is just a nationality. It's not a culture. Those were their words.
Well, it's an extraordinary thing to say. I mean, it's obviously Britain has a very strong culture and has had for centuries.
Yeah.
And you simply can't escape that. And to deny that is an absurdity.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. It's a great piece, by the way. It's on page 14 of the Daily Mail today. Peter, great to talk to you, as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Peter Hitchens there, columnist at the Mail on Sunday and the Daily Mail, got a piece today about that ridiculous situation, which makes an appearance, by the way, on Plank of the Week. A young girl, a 12-year-old girl, who was told that she couldn't enter her own school because she was wearing a Union Jack dress on a day which was supposed to be a day to celebrate different cultures. And apparently the British culture, according to her school, doesn't exist. Somewhere near Rugby. Absolutely incredible.